Hey there! We've been working on a Lockemon region, Lockemon just being what I call our Fakemon for branding purposes or something. So now, at this point, we've talked about the region itself, what inspired it, what Mon live there, what inspired each of them, who the Elite Four and Champion are, who the gym leaders are and their gimmicks, and who the quote-unquote evil organization is, and what their leaders' motivations are, and also what the main professor is doing, developing a cast form for every type. And now that we've gotten this far with all of those ideas, now it's time to finally lay down the plot. So I sat down, wrote out a huge script, realized I didn't understand it, so I made it again, realized halfway through it was still like, how am I gonna present this? So instead, I sat down and made a bullet point list timeline thing with color coding so that I understood how everything flowed and like what the player knows and what the player doesn't know at the time and all this stuff, and it really helped. I now know better world building techniques, which should also help with DMing D&D stuff. So if I were to write a Pokemon game with my ideas and this region in mind, how would I do it? While still trying to keep it, you know, like a Pokemon game, to where it's not too different, but it's different enough that makes me happy. Now, Pokemon games aren't always known for having a deep and intricate plot. Some of them are more intense than others, and they still sometimes have their twists and turns, but rarely is that the focus, and typically major plot events are spread thin across the usual gym challenge plotline. So I'd like to emulate that while also making some changes that I personally would have wanted to see in a Pokemon game for a long time now. The biggest change being who the player character is. Why be 10 to 12 again? No, I want responsibilities. Why be all happy and friendship-based with a bunch of buddies that don't do anything besides smile and give you positive vibes? No! I want teen tier edge in my plot. Not as much as, say, Pokemon Uranium, egad, but enough for, say, like an E10 rating. Now let's see, I've struggled with how to present this. Do I go Pokemon Cardinal style with plenty of voiceover? Or just, like, have me going and explaining everything as, like, a narrator? Maybe an in-between? Well, let's just start and see what happens. Hey, exciting news! Remember this? The Tofrug plush? It's my favorite Lockemon as a plush. Well, here is the final factory version. It's sort of a dream come true to be making plushies for real now. It's a frog masquerading as a block of tofu as a soft and huggable plush. Tofrug is 13 by 10.5 inches and 6 inches tall, and now has fully custom eyes and a body that took us months of working with to perfect. It's got consistent filling density, color matching for the fabric, a soft texture, and durable materials to withstand battles with other Lockemon. And now, I'm here to reveal a new addition. A holographic full-art Lockemon card featuring Tofrug with art from Nani as a pre-order bonus. And all already existing pre-orders will have it included too, so don't you worry. And each pre-ordered plush will come with a card and protective sleeve of its own. So if you want multiple cards, you could always order multiple plushes. We are on schedule to launch over summer. Production has started, meaning now there is a limited quantity, both with the pre-orders of the plushes themselves and especially of the cards. All sales support this channel directly, which is very much needed for this video series because we commission a lot of artists. Thank you all so much, even for just considering, really. Now let's get into this game's plot. And one more announcement. Loads of folks have asked me for a fan game based on Kaskade, and, well, that's happening now. Plenty of experienced folks made a Discord server and have been working on it as we speak. Got a lot of the sprite work, new abilities and new moves programmed, the weather mechanics figured out, even music world and the finer details of the plot and script. It's so exciting! Now, it's not a public server, as we only want people with the time and know-how to help in it. And if that sounds like you, there is a link below for you to apply to enter. Go through the timeline. Well, I guess this video is entirely spoilers anyway, though there's a good chance not all of these ideas will make it in, and some things may change. We've already made tons of changes to stuff in the game compared to the videos. Things like Alfalfalops now is grass rock type, for the sake of balancing. And some Lockemon got their names changed, like Kunsum is now Rascoom. It gets rid of the slur that I wasn't aware of being a slur. Why are there so many slurs? just be nice people. So, yeah. Let's break this video into chapters, timestamps on screen, and just go through the goings-on of this game concept. Chapter 1. The Ancient History. In the beginning, Arceus and company create the world out from Spearpillar. Primal Groudon and Regigigas travel west, creating the Old World continents, occasionally getting in kerfuffles with Kyogre, these kerfuffles being why they traveled west instead of east, and is also the source of the Indian Ocean. While finishing up the western end of the continents, there's yet another major conflict with Primal Kyogre, who now seems to be winning. This is when the mysterious ancient Great Thunderbird steps in to help Groudon, giving it the energy to avoid Kyogre and begin a new set of continents. The New World continents. Oh, and so you know, this has taken like 1 billion years. The new continents are being formed and Groudon gets tired again, but the bird commands and directs it to continue at least for a little while longer. Eventually, there is another fight with Kyogre right at the end. The Thunderbird helps, but ultimately, Kyogre wins. And what would eventually be known as the Kaskade region became one of the last bits of land to be formed on the continent, reflecting the real-world northwest coast. Groudon and the bird part ways and rest. Groudon goes to Hoenn, and the bird remains here, in Proto-Kaskade. Ancient life begins flourishing across the world, as what we now call fossil Pokemon roam the land. About 50 million years ago, a wandering Monadza discovers the Kaskade region and decides to settle, calling it home, and causing an eternal summer. The only time the region has a chance to cool off is when it's sleeping, but it still can't cool off to the point of it being winter. The great ancient Thunderbird is not a fan of this heat, so it wakes up and begins wandering around the continents once more. Eventually, Monadza needs to hibernate for hundreds of eons, which lets the region balance out a bit. But then, about 3 million years ago, while Monadza is hibernating, the wandering Arctical, which is our new name for Arctoyield because I merely settled on the name Arctoyield and I wasn't a huge fan of it, and Arctical is a lot cooler, in my opinion, but let me know in the comments which you prefer. Anyway, Arctical wanders in and begins an ice age, forcing most of the Pokemon living there to flee or die in this frigid wasteland. About 30,000 years ago, humans first arrived in the region and began to settle, slowly going from hunter-gatherers to an agricultural society. This shift in the natural way, this disturbance, awakens Monadza, who returns its part of the region to a hot summer. And the Monadza versus Arctical rivalry begins. They create Tamunk and Temunk as scouts, and when they do eventually meet the great ancient Thunderbird, they immediately recognize its authority. Also, Wiccoot is here now, but nobody knows when, where, or why it showed up. It's just a crazy old coot. At least it's wise. Nobody really likes him though. Little trickster. About 28,000 years ago, this rivalry leads to a giant heat wave, followed immediately by another great ice age, which devastates the region and the humans living there. The forest in the southeastern part of the region completely dies and desertifies. Total destruction, which is then only halted by the once again awoken Great Thunderbird. Wiccoot, not a fan of this, summons all of the legendaries, and they settle on rapidly rotating seasons, a compromise. The box legendaries still bump heads occasionally, which necessitates Wiccoot to negotiate a ceasefire, or for the Thunderbird to step in and forcibly demand one. But doing this takes its toll, as the bird still hasn't fully recovered from its creation days. The ancient Great Thunderbird needs more rest. Eventually, humans move back in, and about 8,000 years ago, a mysterious cataclysm occurs. Mysterious beings from another world invade and are tormenting the villages across the region. A great hero summons Wiccoot to Mount Anil with a mysterious flute and asks for help. The wise Wiccoot always knows where the other legendaries are with its wisdom, and it summons them to help fight off the invaders. The Great Thunderbird fights off the majority of them with its immense power, and even commands some to leave. And they listen, but ultimately, not yet fully recovered from its altercations with Primal Kyogre and all of its previous interactions with Monadza and Arctical, it dies in the process. The humans build a temple to the Great Thunderbird deep in the mountain in memoriam of this event, and they build a relic key out of its remains. And life goes on. Chapter 2. Modern but pre-player history. The rivalry between the box legendaries isn't gone completely, but it has died down since the Thunderbird's passing. They've still butted heads a few times, but Wikut is always able to mitigate the damage and break them up. The human population keeps growing, and their villages continue expanding slowly but surely, and this goes on for thousands of years until around the year 1600. Foreign humans start to move into the region. Some of them occasionally seeing these legendaries and reporting back tales of a more mysterious cryptid Pokemon to their homelands. Around 1850, the foreign humans take over the area, huge swaths of them, and they alter the landscape dramatically with their dams, cities, and gold mining operations. The modern region begins to take shape. In the 1980s, a young Tom Bezel is dating the soon-to-be a professor, Menzie, and is fratbates with the soon-to-be professor, Fur, at Kaskade University. In the 90s, the now single Tom Bezel creates the first widely successful website, Gume's Search, a search engine. He sees this new internet thing as an amazing tool to help people learn and stay connected with everyone, so he eventually also creates FaceDex, the first widely successful social network. He only wants to improve the world and learns through data collection that he can help people all the more by providing a storefront with targeted advertising. And so he creates Amaze-All to conglomerate all of his sites and properties. Eventually, Amaze-All becomes just the way of life in the Kaskade region, as it continues to grow and expand, eventually starting to reach other regions. By this time, sightings of the box legendaries are far and few between, and many question whether or not they even exist. Sometime in the 2000s, the player character is born, and they spend their whole life surrounded by Amaze-All tech, as it's the new normal for the region. Also during this decade, Amaze-All is continuing to expand at an exponential speed. The bigger they grow, the faster they grow, globally even. And they continue to succeed at their goals, to give people what they want, to build infrastructure, to create jobs, to connect people, and to give people more access to information. They even start investing in smaller local businesses like Starbus, which eventually becomes the world's largest coffee shop thanks to Amaze-All's funding, and they start importing coffee beans like crazy. There's also Mega, a taxi service with independent contractors instead of employees. And of course, Amaze-All eventually buys them both up entirely. Towards the end of the 2000s, Ornitholods start appearing in the region. Wait, what do you mean appearing? They've always been here. There's no evidence or fossil record of them always being here. Well, they have no bones. I, for one, love how every important person seems to have an Ornitholod. I just think they're neat. In the 2010s, Amaze-All introduces the Pori Watch and buys up other tech manufacturers and gets into satellite and cell phone infrastructure and manufacturing. Data collection has never been higher, thanks to controlling most of the cell and data towers and satellites, as well as routers and browsers. They start making their own Lockemon too. Amaze-All branded Drifblim to help deliver packages, Botniak to gather data, Amaze-All branded Sudowoodo to help redirect calls and gather data, and Vibat to go to where there isn't much technology and gather data. It's awesome. Meanwhile, Professor Fur begins work on his Castform project, and Professor Menzie is continuing her archaeological digs. Now, as for the player characters, for the sake of this video, we're going to use Ren as the player and Lark as the rival, to keep things simple. Also, they're both named after birds that live here. Local families of birds. Because birds tend to symbolize freedom, you know? It's a theme, trust me. So, Lark, the rival, is fresh out of school and gets hired at Amaze-All and is extremely grateful as it lifts him out of poverty. Meanwhile, Ren is just staying at home in her small town, and now it's the early 2020s. And just before the start of the game, Amaze-All is finishing their development of the Amaze-Ball PokeCloud system, giving trainers in the region access to the PC wherever they are. And they are currently developing a whole new Porygon evolution for Porygon 2, for use in the eventual Porywatch 3. They are also developing more advanced Rotom technology, and top secretly, they've been working on the development of an artificial Thunderbird to give to their sponsored brand ambassador, Champion Yazin. It's just something to look cool, really, and symbolize their region's unique history and folklore. It's just for spectacle. The hard thing is giving it enough power to be able to move and do Pokemon things. But that's not all. Amaze-All is also researching crop development. They've recently learned that they could increase crop yields dramatically just by tweaking the seasonal shifts slightly. They just need to slow down the monthly seasonal changes by about a week. Then their crop profits would explode. And they then could help feed more of the hungry. But will they? Meanwhile, on one of her digs, Menzie learns of a relic that supposedly can open some undiscovered ruins. She now knows what it looks like thanks to depictions, and that it has something to do with the box legendaries, but has no idea where it could be. But through data tracking, Amaze-All learns all of this too, and looks through their database and discovers that a small antique curio shop in Shakeland seems to have something that very well could be it. And they send out Lark to buy it as soon as possible. He isn't told what it does, but just that it's pricelessly valuable. Its importance is immeasurable. And so, he goes. Chapter 3. And the game starts here! So who are you? You are either Ren or Lark, and for this video, you are Ren. You weren't some child prodigy able to become champion as a child. No, you were just an everyday person. Now 22, your experience with Pokemon is positive, though a bit limited. Your mom has a Tofrug that you help train and take care of, but that's about it. Wanting to help with the bills and have something to do with your life, you get a job as the professor's assistant, as there isn't really much else in this small town of Shakeland. And also the professor happens to be a friend of your mom's. Professor Fur has been studying the unique weather G found in the Kaskade region, which makes the seasons rotate in each quadrant monthly, and makes the Pokemon here more empowered with local weather anomaly control. There are unique sorts of weather and weather-like anomalies that are only found in this region. And some parts of the region are just locked in their season for no discernible reason. On top of that, the weather has seemingly been getting more extreme. Plus, Fur still needs to finish his cast form project. There's only a few more to go. So, Professor Fur needs all of the help he can get. For a part of his research, he needs you to go down into the forest to the south and pick up a fern, but recognizes that the wild Pokemon in the area have been acting a bit strange lately, so you better take one of these starter Pokemon, just as some added security. The choice is yours. For the sake of this video, let's go with Thurple. When you arrive back at the lab, you find Lark, who you don't know yet, peeking into the lab's window, just like the rival in Pokemon Gold and Silver. But he runs off before you can confront him. Strange. Now inside, there's some little kid talking to the professor, and he chooses the weaker starter, so Lampus. And the professor gives you some Pokeballs to teach him how to go catch Pokemon. So in this game, the catching tutorial is framed as you showing a kid how to do it. I love this idea. It turns out the kid's name is Jay, and gosh does he love Pokemon, and is just excited to start his own adventure. He just turned 10, you see. After he heads off on his adventure, you return to the lab, and the professor now has a big job for you. Ren, he says, I need you to deliver a package for me on the other side of Kaskade to Professor Menzie. There's no rush with this package at all, but its security is incredibly important. I've already had some young guy try to buy it off of me just after I picked it up from that curio shop. It's far too priceless, and at this point, there's no one I would trust less to deliver it than Amaze-All, or no one I would trust more than you. Besides, I know you've been getting interested in the gym challenge lately, so why not give that a shot while you're on your way? And so, the journey begins. Your mom gives you a brand new Pori Watch 2 as a gift for your upcoming adventure. And much like most Mon games, nothing major really happens at first. Standard routes and NPCs, plenty of world building if you choose to talk to everyone. Before reaching Chapanook City, you bump into Jay, the friendly rival, who has caught some Route 1 Mon and challenges you. And after the battle, you get a call from the professor. The third starter has been stolen. I should have listened to your mom and gotten that security system. I just don't like the idea of Amaze-All having eyes in here too, you know. Can't trust him. So just keep your eyes open for a burb whirl. They are super rare, so it shouldn't be difficult. And so you enter Chapanook City. The vibe is very positive. It's currently getting a load of infrastructure upgrades to compete with Port Alki, the major city to the north, and a lot of this is being built by Amaze-All. You see occasional delivery driftblims and workers out and about. You had no idea just how big the corporation had gotten these last few years until now. It's a bit scary, but the convenience of 2-day deliveries and all of their mobile devices and watches, face decks, goumes, they make so many lives so much better and so much more convenient. So cool! And it all started right here in Kaskade, and only a few years before you were born. What an honor to be born here. They've been around your entire life, and it's hard to imagine a world without them. Plus, with a Peak member subscription, you get access to the Pokemon Cloud and can even order items from your watch. It's amazing. Now, even though the gym is currently under construction, the leader still accepts your challenge, and you prevail. Talk about a confidence boost. Maybe you do have some training talent. Badge in hand, you attempt to leave Chapanook to the east, as the northern bridge is under construction. And you bump into that guy who was staring into the window. He introduces himself as Lark, and offers you a bunch of Pokédollars for your package. After refusing, he attempts to battle you for it. Well, I'm not above taking it. And you discover he stole the Burb Whirl. Oh well, you beat him. And continuing on, there's a wild area, or just a big route with many branching paths. Nothing matters to the plot here other than a load of faux tree cell towers being put up by Amaze-All, and as sort of expected, the closer and closer you get to Solo Falls, the next town, the denser they seem to be placed together. At this town, you learn of surrounding dungeons with different sorts of mon in them, and you also learn that the mountain it's right next to is a mystical mountain, Mount Spectol. People from all over the world come here to meditate. It seems to make opening your mind and soul a lot easier, simplifying the finding yourself process of meditation. There's lots of hippies in the area camping. And also while here you successfully defeat the second gym leader. Yay! As you head towards the Mount Spectol tunnel, you see Lark and Jay talking. Lark seems annoyed.
But our eyes locked! That means we have to battle!
Sorry, Snotty, I don't have time. He turns to you. I have to... And he battles Jay, allowing you to sneak past into the tunnel. While in the tunnel, which is illuminated by glowing magical crystals, you catch a slight glimpse of Cascadian Deoncé. How pretty. There's also a few Amaze-All scientists with some machines doing some... research, I guess. How not pretty. And out on the other side of the tunnel, there is another big open space area, or just a bunch of open-ended routes. You bump into some Amaze-All delivery folks on break who want to unwind with a battle, and you also find some Amaze-All contractors putting up more cell towers. In the desert? Either way, they say you're trespassing on Amaze-All property, so they battle you. Eventually, Lark runs up to you from behind, who, panting, challenges you for the package with the item inside once again. And you beat him again. Meanwhile, at some point in this part of the story, and unknown to the player, Professor Fur finishes his Steel-type cast form, which is capable of nullifying all weather effects when it's brought onto the battlefield, and Amaze-All buys it off of him. Somewhere in this large area is Bent Town, a once prosperous town whose economy collapsed, but is now being built back up thanks to an Amaze-All factory and warehouse set up by the gym leader himself. And after you get his badge, he tells you, if you haven't already, you should check out the Geyser History Museum to the southeast. When you do, you learn plenty of Cascadian history. You learn about the Fossilmon and can even buy a fossil if you can afford it. Maybe after playing at Bent Town's casino, You also learn a lot about the history of the region itself. A lot of the stuff in the Ancient History chapter of this video, but not all of it. While out and about in the desert, you run into Championzin relaxing in the sun, and his assistant is with him. Before you can talk to him, though, Jay runs up.
Hey, Wen! I beat this guy with dumb hair and a Burb Whirl. I think I have enough experience to beat you too.
And he challenges you. You win, of course, and Championzin, who was watching, congratulates you both on a well-fought battle, giving you both a signed photograph of himself in a mildly sultry pose. And then he leaves. And now, back to the routes. More landmarks with different things in them to catch different mons, and another Lark battle at Gorge Outpost. It looks like he's talking to some Amaze-All contractors who are working on another canyon bridge. Oh, them? I was, renewing my Peak membership, yeah. Hey, this bridge is a good spot for a battle. I will get that package from you. At this point, his Burb Whirl has evolved. And just before he throws out his last mon, he says, I know I'm not supposed to use you, but... And he throws out a Botniak. The gym leader at this outpost saw the battle and now challenges you too. And you get another badge. And access to another quadrant. This is where we'll find Professor Menzies' lab. Chapter 4, The Amaze-All Raid and the second half of the game. At the lab, you meet Professor Menzie. She's hard to get a hold of because she doesn't have a phone and barely has a computer. She's very stubborn and into her ways. But you deliver the thing, and she also gives her quail your scent, so that you can communicate now. Via carrier pigeon. But it's a quail.
And you still don't know what's in the box. I'll get to it when I get to it. Go challenge more gyms or whatever you kids do these days.
Oh well. There's 2 more gyms here, and a small town with a farmer's market and state fair. People sell many unique and handmade things here, though they mention that they have to sell a lot of them on Amaze-All's store these days, who of course take a cut of the profit. Oh well. Badge 5 and 6, get! And a message via carrier pigeon. Get! It's time to see Professor Menzie again. On the way, it's Rival again, hanging out with more Amaze-All contractors installing more cell towers. He's nervous looking and tries to act all strong and not nervous as he challenges you again, now with a fully evolved starter. After losing, he's trying really hard to play it cool and is not really working, and he bolts off on a Driftblim after nervously laughing. Well, you reach Menzie's lab. Her Pokemon are frantically looking around the lab for something. Her Warcane is very clumsy about it.
Oh good, you're here. Well, I've lost the relic Fur sent me, and unfortunately it's incredibly important, and I understand why he sent you to deliver it. It was a key of sorts. A key into the ruins I recently found under Mount Anil. I heard some rustling around, and I worry that someone may have taken it, but the thing is, I make sure almost nobody knows where I am. How could they have known where to look? I can't be positive someone stole it without evidence, though. Did you happen to see any suspicious figures? A weird boy that seems to be following you? Floated away on a Driftblim? Had some sort of robot cat with him? Why does that sound suspicious? Can you get a hold of Professor Fur on that wrist thing of yours?
Robotic cat Pokemon? Only Amaze-All workers have those, and mainly the top ones in Port Alki. So, whatever Amaze-All is doing with that can't be good.
Absolutely not.
Well, Ren, I guess it's time I told you why I don't really like Amaze-All. And he tells you about their shared past together, and all of Amaze-All's current ethically questionable Pokemon experimentation and worker overworking, and that it's spooky that they control nearly 3/4 of Kaskade's economy, and nearly 1/8 of the world's. No one should have that much power.
If you're so against them, then why do you have that Pori watch?
Unfortunately, it's hard to lead a normal life without their tech. But regardless, all of the scandals as of late, working with overseas mafia types, Pokemon experimentation, the fines they get when they're caught are just slaps on the wrist to them. All I'm saying is, whatever they want with that relic, it can't be good. We need to get that relic back.
And it's not like we can just report this to the authorities. Who do you think funds them? What? You think it was that suspicious boy? You've already beaten him a few times. Wait! Bye, Professor. I'll send Quailly-Poo your way.
What? What are you... And your Pori watch is no more. She explains that Amaze-All could be listening through it, and this plan needs to be kept a secret. She hands you a large notebook filled with tape and sticky notes, which will serve as your temporary Pokédex. Thankfully, it's already filled with lots of her own notes on Pokemon, which just so happen to be exactly what you had on your Pokédex. Talk about a coincidence! Fourth wall break time. Functionally, it's just a texture change for the Pokédex, but you still have full Pokédex functionality. Menzie tells you that you need to get to Amaze-All HQ as fast as possible, and while not being tracked by your watch. You need to catch up with that Lark fellow and get the relic back. And so, off you go, to the next area, riding on Menzie's speedy Warcane. And on the way, you catch a glimpse of a box legendary on the mountain in the not-too-distance. How cool. Warcane drops you off at a manhole cover next to Amaze-All HQ, and you sneak into Amaze-All HQ. Apparently, their automated security kinda sucks if you don't have any of their trackable tech on you. But there are, of course, guards that you beat, and then they let you through because it's a Pokemon game. They have lots of Vibat, Botniak, Amaze-All Driftblim and Sudowoodos, and Porygons, and Rotoms. And soon you see Lark enter an elevator with the package, and you give chase via the stairs, as the elevator requires a keycard. You fight a few more guards and employees on various floors, and some of the scientists have steel-type cast forms. Huh. Well, you eventually learn by beating up the guards that Lark is likely going to see the CEO, and he always stops at the break room before doing so. At the break room floor, you see him fixing his hair in the mirror and making sure his clothes look nice. Time to surprise him, and time for one more battle.
I can't give you the relic. I need to show Mr. Bezel I'm worth it.
Big boss battle, rival battle time thing. He's got a big team of powerful Mon. Vaquamail, Metagross, Porygon Omega, Rotom in the form that is best against your team composition, and a supercharged Botniak. Though you, of course, still beat him. And while crying, he throws out his last Pokemon, a level 6 Padette, who you have no problem defeating in a single attack. You take back the relic and his keycard and enter the elevator to leave. But it would seem the elevator has been taken over by a Rotom, and it's taking you up instead of down. It opens on the top floor. It's dark, but you can see in the soft spotlight Tom Bezel at his desk. Suddenly, something dark and fast streaks by and takes the relic from your hands. You just make out that it might have been an Ornitholod. And just to the side of you, you see some large, humming machine, a large cloth draped over most of it. But you can make out that the bottom of it appears to be some sort of metal claw. "I see you've made it," he says. "You know, it was a smart move breaking that watch. The next model is just about to be revealed. I can even give you one now if you'd like. You've proven yourself more than worthy of it. You know, it took nearly 20 years to perfect this one, the Porywatch Omega. It turns out all we needed was some patented tech from Rotomoto Co. You know, the makers of the Rotom phone. So, a few calls later, we acquired them and merged their technology into ours. And now the ultimate model of smartwatch is here, each one featuring an all-new Porygon Omega. Here. Porygon, enable all privacy options.
Boop. Complete.
There. You know, every model has always had the option to turn tracking, message reading, and data collection off. You just had to disable it in the settings. It's entirely voluntary. I'd never strip a human of their beloved privacy against their wishes. That'd make me a monster. Ornitholod approaches Tom from the darkness and hands him the box with the relic. It just so happens most folks are willing to trade privacy for convenience, a trade I'll happily provide them, since it leads to more customer satisfaction. And I see you're unsatisfied at the moment. So please, accept my apology. I had no idea the young man I sent out to find this relic would resort to thievery. The gall of some people. Here. He walks up to you and hands you the relic and a new Porywatch Omega, which you put on. I mean, it's so nice. You love Amaze-All tech, and he turned off all of the tracking for you. This relic isn't worth the damage to my reputation this has caused you. I'll see to it that Lark is reprimanded. In fact, would you like his position? 6 figures. Very well. The offer will always be open to you if you wish, and I'm dreadfully sorry that we had to meet under these circumstances. And so, you leave. Just outside of the tower, you see Professor Fur coming out of Omega. He tells you that the bridge to the south has finally been finished. And he's here to help, but he sees that you've already finished. You confront him about selling the steel castform device, and he explains why and all that. Amaze-All offered him more funding than grants would ever provide. And sometimes you have to bend your morals a bit. And he understands that someone as young as you might not understand. You give him the relic to take back to Menzi, and continue on your gym challenge journey. Port Alki is a huge and advanced city. It and the surrounding routes are filled with more world building, and there's some sort of greenhouse lab right in front of the headquarters. You learn that it's a facility studying plants, crops especially, and the effect of different weathers on them. How curious. Exploring the city more, there's your classic "the end is nigh" sign-holding guy. Speaking to him results in no words other than Endrum Odai. Whatever that means. Weirdo. If you pester him enough, though, he'll battle you with an Orphalod and Following. You also now have access to leave the city and go to the third wild area and/or area that's a bunch of open-ended routes. Nice! Eventually, you face the 7th gym and win. Then you track down the 8th gym leader in an old abandoned gym and learn that his gym is moving to an all-new building built by Amaze-All. A bit unfortunate, but I need their funding to survive these days. At least this new gym is way hip, all the latest in gym technology. But all that still doesn't stop me from reminiscing about this one. Oh well. And then BAM! 8 badges. The League? We'll have to wait though. A poster out in front of the League Tower says that they aren't accepting new challengers at the moment, as they are currently setting up an international Elite Four exchange event. How exciting. After reading this poster, Jay walks up to you for another fight. He has 7 badges, and is just looking to track down the 8th leader. You tell him where to find the 8th leader after the battle, and he thanks you and is off. Oh? A message from Professor Menzie. Meet her at her dig site at the base of Mount Anil, back in the desert, by a ghost town. Fun. Now, with this information, the pathway to the ghost town is mysteriously there. Passing by where that pathway is before would result in the pathway not being there at all. How eerie. This old western mining ghost town has a lot of archaeology equipment all around. Makes sense, that's Professor Menzie's specialty. Now inside of the spooky mines, you find an archaeological dig site where there appears to be an ancient mysterious door recently uncovered, with depictions of the box legendaries and a huge pointy bird that clearly isn't Zapdos.
This is the rest of the story.
And Menzie explains the rest of the legendary lore that wasn't at the museum. She also mentions that she doesn't like how the Great Bird of Thunder appears to have fallen.
Well then, we'll have to learn the details deeper in these ruins. I just wanted you here with me in case I run into trouble down here. Are you ready?
And she puts the relic in the slot by the door, and the door opens. Inside, the air is cursed. And wild Pokemon are unlike any you've seen on the surface. Sigilif, Claydol, Cascadian Golett, and at its deepest point, even an occasional unknown. And at the end, a huge Golger is standing guard in front of something, and a boss battle takes place. It's functionally a totem Pokemon which summons Cascadian Goletts. Upon victory, you see what it was guarding. A flute? Of some sort? It's oddly difficult to make out its details, and touching it feels like a heavy burden. Menzie takes it and looks at the murals on the walls here. She learns that this flute can summon the mythical Wakut, but only when blown at the right time and place. And that Wakut, with its wisdom, is able to settle the differences between the box legendaries, which is precisely what it did when it was summoned by an ancient hero on top of Mount Anil. To help with... You can't quite make it out. The Great Thunderbird fell after fighting off the You nor the professor can make out what this part of the mural looks like. The wall is like a cloudy, jumbled, swirly mess, as if you physically cannot comprehend it. There's some weird energy it's giving off. Menzie warily approaches the wall to make a rubbing sketch of it, shaking the whole time. One stroke reveals unseen details you couldn't see before, and Menzie faints, but is caught for a safe landing by her Warcane, who then barks at you to climb on its back, and you hurriedly leave. Just before arriving at Menzie's lab, you run into Lark again.
Hey!
Thanks to you, I lost my job. That was everything I had. Tom essentially saved my life. All I wanted was to pay him back by getting him what he wanted. And I'll still do that, even if he doesn't approve of my methods. Hand over the relic. What do you mean you used it? Doesn't matter. I'll just take whatever then. This is for me, and with my own Pokemon this time. And another battle with an almost all-new team. He no longer has the Mon Amaze-All provided him, and they've been replaced by others, like a now higher-leveled Padette, as well as the stronger starter, but now there's also Fallaming, Cascadian Trevenant, Telemac, and Ornitholod. And he's beaten. I guess it's really not meant to be. Look, I just want to help speed up Mr. Bizzle's dreams of making the world a better, more convenient place. It's the least I can do for him. And apparently whatever that relic led to plays a big part in that. Sorry for getting in your way. And he leaves. You bring Menzie inside, and when she wakes up, she exclaims,
Gee willikers! Consider my curiosity piqued! We have to go test that flute. Since you've got nothing better to do, meet me on the Mountaineal hiking trail.
And she leaves. Later, at the trail, she's nowhere to be found. But as you ascend the mountain, you start running into Amaze-All contractors who battle you. Eventually, you start seeing Amaze-All trucks full of equipment, and finally, you see Menzie at the top, being held back by security officers.
Gah, Ren, good you're here. They've taken the flute. Civil asset forfeiture, they said. I told them that's not how it works. And they just shoved paperwork in my face. No idea how they got a warrant. But we have to stop Tom.
Up ahead, you see Tom, with loads of Amaze-All trucks and personnel around. Steel-type cast forms, Amaze-All branded Sudowoodo, and Tom's own Ornitholod. Out of its Pokeball, as always, Tom has the flute. And the flute is blown. And shortly after, Wickoot leaps into the scene. Oh, great Wickoot. I am Tom Bezel, CEO of Amaze-All. I run the operations of the humans here in this region, and I brought us all great riches and advancement. Now on behalf of them all, I request your assistance.
Coot. Coot? Coot.
Tom explains his wish to simply lengthen the seasons by a week so he can grow more profitable and more efficient crops.
Coot. Coot. Coot.
Wickoot nods and howls. Bezel turns to you and says, See, I told you no harm would need to come to them. I am an expert negotiator, even with Pokemon. It's just good business. The ground rumbles, the weather swirls, and the box legendaries arrive. They are suspicious of this man and all of the other people around, so they approach Wickoot and seem to speak with Wickoot. They seem to argue before eventually walking away angrily. Wickoot snarfs. Is that a no? Wickoot indicates that it was indeed a no. This has been tradition since before humans even arrived here in the first place, let alone these foreign humans who've taken over. It is not up for humans to decide the fate of an entire ecosystem. The Ornitholod moves to hide behind Tom. Unfortunate. Just know that I asked nicely. I didn't spend billions in research to be sent away by something as flimsy as tradition. And 2 Amaze-All Master Balls are thrown at the 2 of them, and they are absorbed in an ominous glow, similar looking to the mysterious mural you couldn't see. The frightened Wickoot rapidly departs. Tom turns to you, walks around his Ornitholod, and says, Sometimes good business means bending some of your own morals. I don't expect you to understand, even at your age. Now, are you here to get in my way again? Well, I suppose it's time I personally challenged you. And he challenges you to a double battle. He only has 4 Pokemon. The first 2 are Matang and Botniak. But upon defeating them, he sends out the 2 box legendaries, and somehow they are obeying his command. But upon defeat, they seem to break out of the balls and leave. Tom yells after them to his contractors, who give chase. Unfortunate. You'll see the consequences of your actions one day. He straightens his tie. Even with roadblocks in our plans, we at Amaze-All will always come out on top. It's time for Plan C. I should thank you, really, for the relic you so kindly left behind in the ruins. He gives you back the flute and leaves. And now you return to the old Gym Challenge plotline, meaning it's league time. The iPlay, the International Pokemon League Association, has started a big international program. For the next year or two, Elite Fours from all over the world will have been mixed. So you get to face off against amazing trainers from all around the world. How neat. In the lobby, you see Tom again, but before you can talk to him, you see the champion's assistant walk up to him and say, "Sir, we have a situation." And they walk off. You defeat the Elite Four one by one and eventually face off against the champion, Champion, who thinks he recognizes you, but isn't sure. He seems very cocky and full of himself. After defeating 5 of his Pokemon, he says, "All right, it's time to reveal my big new friend, brought to you by today's sponsor, Amaze-All." And he brings out the all-new Omega-Rogon. Isn't she beautiful? Amaze-All tech is so cool and convenient and well affordable. But before you have the chance to battle it, Tom walks onto the battlefield, apologizes for the intrusion, and says he needs Omega-Rogon back now before they lose sight of them. He's carrying with him the relic and places it into Omega-Rogon's back, and now it is suddenly bursting with power you can feel as your hair stands on end. Besides, denying you a victory just gives me a kick. And like I said, Amaze-All always gets what it wants. Money may not be able to buy everything, but what it can't can be taken with power. A call on your Pori-Watch from the professors who are together.
Ren, where are you? It looks like Amaze-All just made some fake Thunderbird. It's clearly after Arctical and Monadza. You're the best trainer I know. You have to do something.
And so, you do something. The bird has flown high above the clouds to where you cannot see it, but its energy is great enough that it seems to be mind-controlling all 4 of the box legendaries, and they are doing its bidding. They've slowed down against their will, which will for sure mess with the ecosystem's balance and make them more easily spotted, perhaps getting them more into trouble. Now it's up to you to track them down and capture them, as it's the only way to sever the connection to the artificial Thunderbird. They also each agree to help you for the time being after you capture them, so you can use them in future battles. You seem nice enough, you just saved them. Then, with all 4 of them caught or defeated, you see the upset bird descend onto Mountain Neal to look for them. You meet at its peak and have a big boss battle with it, Ultra Necrozma tier. When dealing the finishing blow, it flies high into the sky and explodes, sending shrapnel all over the region. The day is saved, and Tom, the honest man that he is, turns himself in to the authorities for illegal tampering with legendary Pokemon. You reface the champion and win, becoming the new champion and the new brand ambassador of Amaze-All. And also, Lucinia is your secretary, assistant, and guard now. And the following day, Tom pays his fines and gets out of jail to continue his plots. He asks to make amends with you and the professors, who, of course, refuse, so he stops sponsoring the champion. And that's just about as summarized as I can make a plot video. Oh, but what about that mysterious mural in the ruins, and that mysterious energy that was in the Master Balls? What about the cat? And what about all of the foreshadowing? Was that all for post-game stuff? Oh, you bet your butt it is. Chapter 5. The Post-Game Plot. The post-game begins with another battle with Jay.
Battling a champion is super cool! Thank you so much for the experience, I learned a lot! I swear I'll get that 8th badge soon and challenge you for real!
As Jay leaves, Lucy approaches you and says it's time for your photo shoot. And she also tells you that there is a rumor going around that the old champion, Yazin, is gathering the exploded pieces of Omega Rogon. Oh well, not much you can do. It's good to pick up litter anyway. You might as well keep an eye out for those pieces too. They've been scattered around the region, and if you happen to pick one up, that's good. Just before the photo shoot, however, she stops you again. Hang on, Ren. We have a situation. As champion, it's your responsibility to look into things like this. As it turns out, Amaze-All workers are getting into a bit of a fight with a Cascadian Deontay who's damaging all sorts of property. It would seem that she doesn't approve of them building cell towers all over Mount Spectol. You do seem to remember them building a bunch of towers on either side of the mountain before. I guess they started putting them up on the mountain now too. Lucy joins you, and as you approach the mountain, she points out that it's odd how the towers get more and more densely packed together as you get closer to the mountain. Is it to help the cell signal traverse the mountain? You'd think the satellites would do that. On the mountain, Cascadian Deontay is defeated or captured by Ren. This makes Deontay see your strength and determination, and she willfully joins you. So now you go to confront Tom about this. Clearly Deontay doesn't want these towers put on the mountain. You meet Tom in his office, his Orbthalod absent for once. He spills the beans and confidently tells you his plan. The goal is to spread this mountain's strange, soul-opening property across the region, giving Amaze-All access to everyone's souls and thoughts. All the better to serve them, of course. No longer will all of their data be only from web tracking, search engines, and their phones and watches picking up everything they say and do. They can truly give people what they want, their unspoken desires. Their customer satisfaction rate will be perfect. And in return, Amaze-All will become the most powerful corporation on the planet. All for the greater good and betterment of mankind, of course. Isn't that simply wonderful?
What? No, that's horrible. That's violating everyone's privacy.
Oh, please. If our data is anything to go by, privacy is virtually worthless to you humans, willing to trade it away for just the smallest of conveniences. Human progress is entirely to make life easier, and this is that taken to the extreme. For everyone.
What do you mean, you humans?
No, you've gotten me all excited. A slip of the tongue is all. And besides, what do you even plan to accomplish here? Going to beat me in a Pokemon battle? The cell towers are already built. We've gotten the permits already. I own that mountain. Beating me won't stop anything. There may be occasional setbacks to our plans, as you've proven, but Amaze-All is too big to fail. This is already set in motion, and besides, everything we're doing is completely legal.
This is way too much knowledge and power for one corporation, let alone one person. It's not ethical.
When have your laws ever been concerned with ethics?
Ren, I don't like this.
Oh, bother. It's just another slip of the tongue. Clearly, I just mean your laws often don't apply to men of my ambition. My ideas and drive are too important for civilization to be kept locked away. Deontay then breaks out of her Pokeball and fires out a field of sorts towards Tom, revealing his Orbthalod just behind him as Tom collapses to the floor. This Orbthalod had been controlling Tom, similarly to Calyrex in the Crown Tundra. A battle begins. Orbthalod appears as the trainer and sends out Tom to battle. But it's meta stuff. Now, Tom's first move is programmed to always go first, and it also auto-defeats him with the text on screen saying, "We can't attack a person," and it brings out Orbthalod. It's a funny joke. This Orbthalod is functionally a totem Orbthalod that summons Unknown. Once defeated, the passed-out Tom wakes up, totally oblivious to what's been happening the last few hours. I did what? I don't remember approving any of this construction. How would I have even known this kind of thing was possible with our technology? The passed out Orbathalot awakens and flees. I'm afraid it might be too late now, though. My notes here says that this scheduled activation will happen in about 20 seconds! Beyonce quickly comes out and creates an energy field around you and Lucy as a strange wave of energy from the mountain moves through the room as if ignoring the walls of the building and continues on through to the other side and out. Beyonce keeps the field up as you and Lucy walk around. Speaking to Tom at this point gives you nothing but ellipses. Lucy says we have to get back to the mountain. And on the way, talking to any NPC gives you the same few messages. They're arriving. Redemption. Why is your soul not open? Do you not wish to help with the gate? Endram Odai. After all this time, the cataclysm is finally here. You even bump into Jay, also in a daze. You ascend the mountain once more. At its peak, a portal seems to be opening, powered by everyone's open souls. The cell towers channeling the mountain's energy out to open the souls, and the soul energy back here to open the portal. From the portal, 4 Mon descend. 3 of them fly off in different directions, and the remaining one floats down to you. Seeing that you are unfazed, it fights you. And by the way, I'll have an Origins video for them all later. This is Pestulation, fighting you as a trainer. It itself seems to speak in odd symbols you can't understand. It has 2 Orbathalot, and an Ultra Beast based on which would be best against your strongest Pokemon, or just whichever is out currently, before eventually being a part of the fight itself. Defeating it causes it to bolt off, flying away, and the portal closes, returning the NPCs to normal. You now have to track down and stop them. There's no telling what their plan is. At this point, the player isn't given any direction on where they are. However, NPCs who caught glimpses of them will give hints, and there may even be evidence in the environment. It's very Bigfoot hunting-esque. One by one, you fight them, similarly to the first one, where they are functionally trainers until they themselves come out. Revillon, Leosis, and Lamentu, each causing trouble and gathering strange artifacts. One of them even finds the old relic key from the exploded off Omega Rogon. After defeating all 4, you get a call from Professor Fur, where he tells you that he just spoke to a Professor Kukui of the Alola region. Apparently, something very similar to what they call an ultra wormhole is being formed above the mountain again, only this one seems much more sinister. It doesn't seem to be from a wandering Ultra Beast, but something that clearly intends to come here and do something unthinkable. Kukui is mailing you some beast balls just in case they help. One final time you ascend Mount Spectool, its landscape slightly shifted, and Orbathalot and Unknown are abound. Your shipment of beast balls arrives from an Amaze-All Driftblim, and at the peak, the 4 of them are using the artifacts they've collected to seemingly power the portal back up. And Lucy says you have to capture them now, or they'll just run away and start this all over again. And one by one, you approach, and do just that. After capturing all 4, the portal still hasn't closed. The artifacts are still giving off their power, so out from the portal comes a whale of a Mon. You don't know how you know, but you recognize this Pokemon Ultra Beast thing as Endram Odai. It screams in whaley pain and flies away into the sky. You could feel how powerful it was just by looking at it, and just looking at it is all it took to cause a massive migraine. We're going to need help. I'll arrange a meeting, Lucy says, and you meet up with the professors at a Starbis. Menzie says this seems to be in line with what the ancient cataclysm was. Only problem is, now the Thunderbird is gone. No, says Yazin, arriving heroically into the scene, combing his hair back, carrying a sack full of broken parts. We can rebuild it! Yazin has gathered many of the pieces of the artificial Thunderbird, and maybe you have too. But many of them are still missing, with no indication of where they could be. Well, I'm sure Mr. Bezel would be down to help.
No way!
Both professors exclaim. I mean, he's bound to have tracking installed on them. He puts tracking on everything. So you talk to Tom again, enemy of my enemy and all that. You track down the last big pieces that you need to put it all back together, and they give it to you. Menzie mentions that the relic that gives it the extra power boost is made from the remains of the original Thunderbird, and should attract Andromodai. With Omega Rogon, you track down Andromodai, and force it to descend and challenge you to an ultimate battle. As it descends towards you, you feel your head pound just at the sight of it. You feel it peering into your soul, somehow with all of its eyes at once, despite not being dimensionally possible. And the battle begins. In this battle, you feel that remembering your Pokemon's names and moves is a struggle. For the player now, breaking out of the fourth wall again, all the text on screen and the sprites in the menus becomes gibberish. Hopefully, you, the player, remember the organization of your team and their move placement. This is another challenging Ultra Necrozma tier fight, made harder by the menu shenanigans. But ultimately, of course, you win. And the red face of the space whale seems to dim away. Turns out, it was a parasite controlling the creature. And now it is free from the mind control and offers itself to you to capture. Or it doesn't, and it just leaves. Personally, I really like the idea of ultra-powerful legendaries not being obtainable, but I know plenty of others aren't. But anyway, the day is saved once again, thanks to the excellent efforts of Ren, or whatever you decide to name the player. After this, it's a basic Pokemon postgame. You can even find Lark again, who's been practicing battling a lot, and he challenges you, as champion, to a super hard fight. His Podet's evolved into a wound. You inspired him and he's changed his ways. Now he's a good boy. So what do you think? Obviously, this video is skipping over a load of locations and little story-esque events that don't directly impact the overall plot, like most of the gym leaders and places like the Haunted House and the Crater Lake equivalent, among many others. Personally, I quite like these ideas. They could use some more polishing, but for the first big story thing I've ever written, I'd say this is pretty cool. Let me know what you think down below. And while you're down there, check out Gnoggin.net to pre-order Tofrug